Today's NBA players, you know, you can't win for losing whenever they're being critiqued by analysts like Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, and others. All right. So check this out. So they say today's league, most of the players would not be able to play back in the 80s and the 90s because of the brutal physicality of the NBA. All right. Now, back in those days, what Pat Bev did to CP3 when he pushed him in the back, guess what? The Suns, that put the Suns up by 24, 26 points right there. That was more than a nail in the coffin. That was a triple nail in the coffin after you already buried. 3-4 minutes left in the game. A lot of teams, a lot of players on the losing side would take offense to that. And it's okay to get mad and to be angry, and I get it. Just play better. Don't put yourself in that situation. But back in the days, in the 80s and 90s, early 90s, guess what? You had a lot of players where, guess what? Had Chris Paul did that, they would have did the same thing to Chris Paul. They would have shoved him, or they would have went and shoved him in his face. Some players probably would have clocked him upside the head. All right? Serious. I'm telling you. But check this out. All right? We criticize these players of today. We say they would not be able to hang with the players back in the 80s and 90s, right? Because they not about that life, that physicality, that no nonsense stuff. You know what I'm saying? Jordan going up to the basket in the Detroit Pistons, New York Knicks, or Cleveland Cavaliers, whichever team he's facing, would knock your head off and stuff, right? We talk about that as if that was okay. All right. And then at the same time, we pretend that, the players of today can't play that way because they don't play that way right now. Well, it's not by the player's choice. It's because the penalties are a lot harsher than it was back then. All right. Think about it. If you're encouraging players to be like they was in the 80s and 90s in this era of basketball now because you believe the players of today are soft, okay, when they are fined $50,000 or $500,000, are you going to help pay their fine? No, you're not. You're not. All right. You're probably going to ask them for some money. All right. So we can't knock these players for following the rules. And that doesn't mean the players are soft just because the rules have changed. They're following the rules. And don't we want players to follow the rules? Because guess what? What they say last night, they caught Mike Breen. He said what Pat Bev did was unsportsmanlike to the utmost. But guess what? I've seen Chris Paul, I can't even say a few. I've seen Chris Paul punch a lot of dudes in the groin. All right. I can't even say a few because once it gets past two, that's more than a few. And those are the times that he has been caught. All right. But I'm just saying, hey, man, we have to, we can't call the players soft because they don't play that way like they did in the 90s. But then when they do decide to do a move like somebody like a Charles Oakley or Xavier McDaniel or Bill Laimbeer would do, or Kevin McHale or Robert Parrish would do back in the day, when they would do something like that, we say, they dirty, unsportsmanlike. Come on, people. Come on now. And I say we because I know I've said it before. But I don't beat down on it like how Stephen A. be. He be calling them soft. Here's the thing. I'm just not comfortable calling any grown up soft. You know what I'm saying? Because guess what? Nobody is hard in every situation. Okay? We all have situations in our life where, hey, we might, to most eyes, we might appear to be soft. You know what I'm saying? So, but here's the thing. Let's not call people soft because they're not doing what they did in the 90s back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Because see, if we do that, all right, let's see if you have the courage behind your convictions. If that player, whether if he's in the NBA, WNBA, whatever, okay, if he or she gets fined, are you going to pay for that fine? Are you? Well, okay. So that's the way I look at it. I'm like, hey, man. Now, Pat Bev shoved him in the back. Thank God CP3 is not hurt. I do believe that CP3 oversold it. It kind of reminds me of when Stone Cold Steve Austin gives The Rock the Stone Cold Stunner, and The Rock does The Rock does 5 flips like he's Simone Biles or something. You know what I'm saying? But when he does the stunner to everybody else, everybody, they feel it, the impact, but The Rock sells, man, nobody can sell a Stone Cold Stunner like Stone Cold Steve Austin. And right now, like I say, he did that push on him. I mean, it was a push in the back. And like I say, people act like Chris Paul is some small dude. No, he is not small. Okay, he got some weight on him. Okay, Bev is smaller than him technically. All right, but he came and he pushed him in the back. Paul fell down as if he got shot and started curling up, but I get it. He's trying to sell it. It's one of those things. If Chris Paul is on your team, are you a fan of the Suns or a fan of Chris Paul? You know, and I can't even say deep down, you know, right at the top, you know that, you know what, man? He is selling that. He is faking. But guess what? If it benefits my team, I'm down for it. But if, let's say, if you're not a fan of Chris Paul at all, or you are not a fan of the Suns, and if you're a Clippers fan, you're like, dude is faking. He's clearly lying. You know? But, hey, it is what it is. That's been part of the game for as long as I've been watching it. You got your John Stocktons, you know, you got your Karl Malones, almost every player that comes out of Utah. Hey, as a Rockets fan, you got your Shane Battiers, you know, LeBron James does it. You know, almost every player, especially superstars, they flop or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But, yeah, man, we can't be calling these players soft, and then when they do a move like somebody in the 80s, okay, then we calling them Bush League and unsportsmanlike conduct. I mean, that's being a hypocrite, right? All right. Now, for those of you who have never said that, hey, they should be playing physical or doing like what they do back in the 80s and 90s, this message is not for you. But for most of us, we all have looked at that and we was like, man, a lot of these players, they wouldn't be able to survive back in the day. But here's the thing. We don't know a lot of these players' histories or what goes on in their head and stuff. I mean, I think most of the players of today would survive back in the day. Certain parts of their game will probably be changed and stuff like that. But, you know, like, if we say, like, the James Hardens, the Kevin Durant's, the Chris Pauls, and the Kawhi Leonard's, and the Paul Georges, and Devin Booker's, if we say that they wouldn't have been able to survive back in the day because Bill Laimbeer would knock them on their tail. I mean, you think these dudes are going to stay down? Seriously, do you think if Bill Laimbeer knocked Kevin Durant or Chris Paul on his you know what, you think they're going to stay down? And you think that they're not going to get Bill Laimbeer back? You know what I'm saying? Or do you not think that none of that? See, that's the thing. Almost all teams, they had at least 2 or 3 players, you know, who was like about that life. It's like, hey, all right, you mess with my teammate, I'm going to get you. You know what I'm saying? Shannon Sharp said it himself. If somebody ever cheap shot or did something to John Elway, guess what? I'm gonna get him back. I'll pay the fine. Oh, I get suspended. I'll get suspended. You don't do that to my quarterback or to any of my teammates. Okay. So here's the thing: if Kevin Durant or CP3 or Devin Booker or Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, any of them, if they played back in the day, guess what? They also gonna have teammates on their team that's ready to, hey, that's going to either lay Bill Laimbeer out like they did their teammate, or they're going to go lay Isaiah Thomas out, you know? But let's not act like it was just like a Royal Rumble out there. It wasn't a Royal Rumble. It wasn't, okay? Physical basketball, harder picks were set and screens were set, but, I mean, come on now, they wasn't knocking people out like that. But see, a lot of people do that to over-exaggerate how tough Michael Jordan had it. And Michael Jordan did had it tough against those Piston teams and Knicks teams and Cavalier teams. That's no knock on it. But let's not over-exaggerate it. Let's not over-exaggerate it to discredit LeBron. You know, a lot of people actually think LeBron would not have survived in the 80s and 90s, which is crazy. Dude is 270, 6'9", all muscle. I mean, come on now. Charles Oakley and them, they would have to literally catch him to do something physical to him. But also, here's the thing. You do something physical to him, for every action, there's a reaction, right? So, hey, man. But, I just saw that Pat Bev, he had apologized to CP3. I don't know if CP3 is going to accept the apology or not, but I'm pretty sure he will. CP3 is that was good gamesmanship on his part, because, you know, he straight up ended their season, man, and it's like there's nothing you can do about it. He just ran up and he pushed them. You know, it almost reminded me of the push that DeMarcus Cousins did to Devin Booker at the end of game 2. And see, that was one of those big brother and little brother pushes, because for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, DeMarcus Cousins, Rajon Rondo, Devin Booker, they're former University of Kentucky Wildcats. They wasn't there at the same time, but they have a strong alumni. They're brothers. They have a connection. It's like a fraternity to them. They have a bond. So DeMarcus Cousins can get away with that. And the thing about it is, Devin Booker said it himself. He said, "Hey man, that's just Wildcat brothers just going at it." You know what I'm saying? So that's why there was no suspensions or anything or fines on that. But I don't know. You share your thoughts down below, whether or not, if you think that, all right, what Pat Bev did, I'm not saying it was right, I'm not saying it was wrong, I'm not definitely not condoning it, but if you felt like what Pat Bev did, is that something that's straight out of the 80s and 90s? And then the thing about it is, do you feel like a lot of the NBA stars are, do you feel like they get the label as being soft and weak because they're not playing in a more physical league like in the 80s and 90s? And then when they do play like they do in the 80s and 90s, they get called Bush League dirty players. Do you think that assessment, that evaluation is fair or is justified? Share your thoughts down below. Hit that like and subscribe button. Student of the Game podcast. We about to close this segment out if you're listening or if you're watching on the video, but we will continue for those who are listening to the podcast. And check the podcast out, people. All right, check the podcast out. All right, you can go to Spotify, Anchor, Google, iTunes. Check it out. Student of the Game podcast.